Yeah, we'll go ahead and call the work session to order. This work session is to discuss how we can approach and develop a strategic uh, plan built off the 2040 vision and other documents that are out there. I think it's important for the city council to do this function, and it gives clarity to the staff so they can move forward on what they need to move forward on. But what I'll do is I'll turn it over to Ron. He's going to go through, he put out a memorandum. I think everybody has a copy of it. He's going to go through kind of how we can approach this process. One thing on here, well, he'll go over this, how we can approach this process, and maybe some things we need to think about on setting goals for strategic goals. Then I'll open it up to people for free discussion on goals. I know that Wayne brought one that he would like to discuss a little bit and whatnot. This isn't a decision-making body or form right now. However, I'll let everybody speak on what they're kind of thinking. The one thing that I would caution though is if you have a lot of public safety goals that you're wanting to talk about with the police department, remember we're right in the midst of negotiation with the Teamsters and all that. So let's maybe constrain those a little bit so we can, we don't pollute that process. So with that being said, I'll turn it over to Ron.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, City Council. So what we've put together for you here today is basically kind of an outline of what we can do. Obviously, there's other things we can do. This is just kind of off the top of our heads of what the best way to go about setting goals is. You can see we've added what the city mission statement is. City of Lebanon is dedicated to providing exceptional services and opportunities to enhance the quality of life for present and future members of the community. I believe that's right off the 2040 vision statement. So the purpose is to establish what type of goal setting session you want to have. Not necessarily today, but how do we want to move forward with goal setting? And I'll go through a couple of examples of what we can do and what those look like. And please feel free to stop, ask questions as we go along. It's important that we have goals. Staff already has goals that are underway right now, and it's important that those goals align with what this decision-making body sets out as goals, and so we support those goals. So that's kind of the crux of it. We don't want to be going in one direction and council going in a different direction. Our job is to, you guys set policy goals, and we do the things that actually get to those goals. So keep that in mind as we go through that part. So types of goal setting, what are there? So you could do 1 to 2 year goals so that you've got some measurability to it. With that, I would say that for goals this year, we've got quite a few already on the docket. If you look at the city manager's report right now, you can see what is in process. So I think we'd look out probably for the next year because budget process has already started this year. And that doesn't mean that you can't agree to what's been in motion already. So this can be accomplished if we do it this way. We can do this as a city staff and city council work session. We can work through that, or you can have a moderator. I would suggest a moderator rather than then it would probably be me if it wasn't a moderator, and that's really not my strong suit. So I would suggest, having a moderator do it. There's an expense with that, but I think it's a worthwhile expense to line that out. So basically how that works, council creates an overall policy, and you jump it off into different categories. You can see 4 categories that we've listed below that. There could be other categories, but those are primarily the ones that we deal with on a day-to-day basis. And that's not to say that you couldn't come up with different categories that you thought that there were worthwhile goals in. So once you've established those categories and what your goals are, your overarching goals, then the management team kind of proposes a work plan that fits those goals. And that's kind of what we've done right now. I mean, we come before you and with the budget process, and we look at, this is what we're planning for next year's budget. And that in and of itself is a goal. And so you guys look at that and agree to or disagree to the budget and different areas of that. Some of the things, that we would look at, from the 4 categories above, just to give you some examples. And, like for infrastructure, this year, we're going to complete the reconstruction of 7th Street. How many water lines do you want to replace? Remember, all this has budget implications to it. So these are the things that when we're setting goals, budget's always got to be there on the forefront and 99% of what we do. So identify another thing, whether pretreatment will be needed on our water plant if we continue drawdowns. That's another goal that we'll have to look at should that happen. Public safety, I've heard multiple times, consider alternative revenues or ways to fund the jail, opening the jail back up. Same thing, quality of life, code amendments for housing production, right? So how do we build more houses, meet the infrastructure needs, also while being able to keep up with the infrastructure needs. So those are goals. Another one for livability is begin the capital fundraising plan for the children's room at the library. And these are just examples. These aren't anything, these are things that are kind of already in motion. But just to kind of give you an example of what we're talking about once you set goals, how we would try and achieve those. And based on budget. But it's critical that every goal that's set, we make sure that we understand the budget implications to it. If you say you want to, let's just use water lines, for example, we want to replace 10 water lines a year. I'd say to you, well, that's a doable process. However, the rate increase needed to do so would be so substantial that you may want to rethink how many we replace, and go that route. So that kind of gives you an idea of how we would do that. And keep in mind, these are 1 to 2 year goals. This isn't a strategic plan. This is 1 to 2 year goals. You can provide quarterly reports, either in a manager's report and then in a yearly report to kind of report back on how you did. What was the progress on it? What were the things that got in the way? How would that process look like? And how it's going. So that's kind of in a nutshell what we do that way, if we did 1 to 2 year goals. If we did a strategic plan, which in my personal opinion is probably a more fitting way to go about this process. Strategic plan, you're looking at typically 5 years to plan this out. You're setting a plan in action, which consists of goals, but you're looking at the whole picture rather than just short-term things, because a lot of what we do also takes 1, 2, 3 years, and you can really line that back up into a little bit better outcomes and see, it's a little more measurable in that case than a year-over-year basis. So this, I would recommend we do with a moderator for sure. There's a process that you can go through. It's a more in-depth evaluation of, what are organizational threats, i.e. budgetary issues, opportunities that we have, grants, different businesses coming to town, things like that would play into your goal setting session. Major projects, and you'll probably hear me say this a lot over the next few months. We're really focused in on a staff right now on working through ways to solve the structural deficit. We are looking at absolutely everything is on the table, from restructuring to what happens if you close X, what are the implications, what are the consequences, pros, cons to doing so. So you'll hear that from us here in the next few months. So that is a major priority from us, and hope that it is for the council as well. I think that until the structural deficit is at least in a manageable place, it's going to be hard to set goals, because again, it all relates back to budget. And you can set these goals, and if you're in a structural deficit, it doesn't really do you any good, because you're never going to get there. And so if we can find ways to achieve that and look through, again, everything's on the table. It's not just we need more money. We're going to look deep inside the organization, and there's going to be some uncomfortable discussions about how we get there and what those consequences look like, what the pros and cons of them are, with the number one goal still to provide service to the public, and in areas that we have to first, and then in secondary areas. So areas that we have to are ORS related. So there's things that we have to do by state law. So we'll look at that. Other things, on the horizon, the municipal jail. I've heard that from council, opening up the jail. Wastewater treatment plant improvements, we've got some big dollar improvements coming to the wastewater plant. I think the first two, just on a brief, two priorities out of the master plan as it's coming out, are about 35 million. Those are your first two priorities. And those are things that unfortunately aren't going to go away. And we're going to have to, figure out how to pay for that and how to get those going. Pre-treatment at the water plant, obviously, if the drawdowns continue, we don't have a lot of say in that, but we're working through those issues. Another big one, funding mechanism for trails, parks, maintenance, and replacement. All that money comes out of your general fund, right? So we continue to build trails. Which trails are great. Our community loves trails. But as staff, we look at this and know that at some point they're going to come due. There's no money to replace them. We have a little bit of money for maintenance, basically cutting the shrubbery back and whatnot, but we don't have any money for hard capital costs to replace that stuff. So that's another thing that's going to have to be out there on the table. Funding for Library Senior Center, continuing those programs. Another consideration is the development of Western University. They're still moving forward with that. We need to do what we can to assist in that process, which we are currently. We're working through rail crossing issues with them right now. We have significant development code amendments that are coming with state requirements. So as you've seen from the housing production strategy, what that looks like. So that's coming. We do have a lot of different developers still looking around for single-family homes, some commercial, some of which I can't really get into in a public forum because it's still somewhat confidential, but until we have at least a planning application at that point. But there is still a lot of people inquiring on different forms of housing, different commercial developments. And along with that, obviously, comes infrastructure. And Kelly's on a committee with the state to look at potential for infrastructure funding from the state for housing. Whether anything comes out of that in this session or not, I think her and I are both, I wouldn't say optimistic, but we'll see what happens as they work through that process. City Hall's on the list. Always has been. It's a big expense, but that building it's used its useful life. We're still using it. I don't know that I'd prioritize it by any means unless you've got a way to pay for it. We've gone down the path several times to look at different city halls, and it's a hard sell. It's a hard sell to the public, and it's a hard sell for competing interests. Let's put it that way. So that's on there, though. Redevelopment of the Champion Mill site, if that becomes a council priority. Those are some of the things that to think about as we go through a strategic plan and you know, looking at it from a 30,000-foot view, what does this look like? And then you'd kind of, from there, build goals off of some of that stuff. So the planning process is generally summed up in 3 questions. What do you want to do? And how are we going to do it? And what happens if you do it? Those are the three things that you've got to ask yourself when you go through that process. So basically, what do we want to do? I mean, we've kind of listed out some things up there. And don't get me wrong, this isn't what staff's proposing by any means. I mean, some of it is, but these are just examples of what you can come up with. You know, I mean, there could be a whole slew of them once you go through the strategic process. Another thing that we put in here was the strategic planning process would usually include an environmental scan. So that provides comprehensive information on the current conditions of the city, what opportunities we have, strengths, weaknesses. And again, we go back to budget and how we fix the budget. Where are we at on staffing levels to achieve the goals? That's another big one, right? So we have to be able to have adequate staff to achieve any big long-term goals and make sure that we can get there. In some cases, the staff that we have now, if we had more goals or more work, we would probably look at needing to hire additional folks to do some of that stuff. So you're going to define a mission and a vision with this, how you're going to tackle it, what is your mission, what does the vision look like? And I think you can look at the 2040 vision, and I sent out an email that showed what has been done, you know, what's in process. It was something that was put together, I believe, last year as it related to the 2040 vision and the different categories that were along there and how we were making it. A lot of what's in the 2040 vision is not stuff that's related to city. So the city's going to have, I mean, we could have a partnership role in some of that. Again, how does that impact staff? Do we have enough staff to have a partnership role in some of this stuff? But a lot of it was related to other agencies within the community. So keep that in mind as we're going through this. And then, you know, we've got here, what's the assessment of the current situation that we have right now? I think everybody's aware. I mean, we're not in dire straits, and you know, you hear us talk about structural deficit. I don't want to come at this at the sky is falling. This is a solvable issue. It's going to be an uncomfortable issue, but it's a solvable issue. And the city's not in any position that we're, you know, looking at any kind of bankruptcy or anything like that. But in order to move this forward, continue to grow, we're going to have to address that head on and look through those issues. And then the plan basically, it's going to set organizational and direction priorities with your strategic plan. And from there, you'll have goals from that. And then you kind of review and revise that on a yearly basis as needed. So those are the 2 types that I'd love to say off the top of my head, but it's not off the top of my head. I had a lot of help from Kelly with this. She's very, very good at this. So if you like it, I did it. If you don't like it, Kelly did it. That's how we'll roll that out.
Wow, okay.
I already told her I was going to say that.
Oh.
She knows. No, I appreciate the help because she is good at this, and there's a lot to it. So, any questions on those? On how you know those 2 types, those 2? Any questions there?
So you're suggesting it's pick one or the other, it's not both?
Well, I think if you pick a strategic plan, a 5-year strategic plan, you're still going to get goals that come out of it, right?
Yeah.
So that's you're tying it all up into one. If you just say, hey, we just want to do 1 to 2 year goal setting, we could sit here probably as a body and with staff and come up with goals. I think you're looking at a more in-depth with this. And let's be honest, we're not going to solve the structural deficit this year. So this gives us an opportunity to make strides towards that stuff. And 1 to 2 year goals are great, but I think you need to have a vision of where you want to go so that we're all on the same track moving forward.
Okay.
That would be my recommendation.
Yeah, I think I agree.
I think we owe the community that we're looking out 5 years. You're going to have those stopgap things, but a 1 or 2, you're looking 1 or 2 years ahead. Some of that's never going to come to fruition. Other things are going to come up and you're going to lose focus,
Correct.
in my
And I
opinion.
think as we, talk about a 5-year plan, it's not impossible to include, well, this is the main priority of that 5-year plan that we hope to accomplish, not in 5 years, but in 1 or 2 or something.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, I agree. I think it's been a better part of a decade since this council or any
It's been a
since the
while.
council has taken part in goal setting. I've been on for 5 years now, and I've never participated in it here. So I
it's
think
been a
it's
long
the
time.
right move for this group.
Yeah, I don't remember one being done after the 2040 vision was created. So that was 16,
14?
15? Yeah, I don't
14,
remember the
15.
date exactly, but yeah, somewhere in there. So it has been done in the past. I do like the idea of a 5-year strategic plan. I think it brings a moderator in. And no offense, but it corrals you guys. And keeps you on a path, where it might be harder for me to do. So
As somebody with no experience with it, what does a moderator bring other than just somebody who's interested in the community and keeps us on? I don't know what that looks like.
They keep us on task.
yes,
That's the biggest
so they're going
part,
to keep
yeah.
you on task. They're gonna pick your brain and put things out that. What'd you say? I said I can do that.
Well, we certainly pay you enough to do it.
But I mean,
You're welcome.
Shots.
is there professionals out there who just come in and be moderators?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and if that's the direction you want to go, I mean, we can put an RFP out for somebody to come in and do this. There's organizations that do it. You're looking at a cost of probably somewhere around 10 to 15,000, depending on how you want it structured, right? But I think it's worthwhile. I think it gives you a good, I don't even know how to say, of where you're headed. It gives staff clear direction on where the council wants to head. I mean, we can sit here, I know what your number one goal is, I think. But my question to you is, how do I get there, right? So we need to be able to get into all of that so that we've got a plan in place that we go, okay, here's the council goals laid out here. And we're kind of doing that in some ways by looking at the budget and what we can do internally, and we'll work through that this year. We're not going to back off of that just because we're doing a strategic action plan. We intend to do these in parallel, with the budget process and how we fix that and what some solutions are. And it's going to take everybody's mind to fix that. And there's going to be probably some hard decisions that are going to have to be made in order to do that. So that's my thought on it. But I think they can, I think Michelle probably summed it up the best. They keep you on task. They're going to ask questions that I wouldn't even think to ask, and be able to tie all this back together. And that's what they would do.
I think the other thing too with a 5-year plan is as we look for a city manager, this gives that person, our goals are as a body, and they know what we're expecting that person to enact for us. So,
Good point.
yeah.
Okay. So moving on just a little bit here. So if you did the strategic action plan, you'd identify who you want involved in that. I assume your management team, how much staff, your facilitator. We can set the parameters on this. We can go back and look at what some other cities have done in terms of an RFP to bring on a facilitator. I mean, I wouldn't get too, you can go as deep as you want, but I think if the more simple we kept it, probably the better. Yeah.
Hold up for a second.
Okay.
Hold for a train pause.
Had some personality to the whole thing.
Okay, we get it.
They enjoy doing that way too much, I swear.
Well, if I was running it, I'd swing from it, so, yeah.
No, that's true, you would.
Okay,
Okay, so yeah, identify who we want involved, and I think we've got a pretty good list there of who would be involved with that. And then timing, there's a couple of ways you can do it. We can do it over several scheduled council work sessions. You can do it in retreat style where you just go, hey, we're going to set aside 1-2 days and we're going to do this.
hold up for a second. Can someone go over, because we had talked about this last year doing this process and I need some clarity on what retreat would be, how it would look. Because I never really got an answer. It's not a decision-making forum, or is it? A retreat, is it where we just share our ideas?
Right.
And we come out with a document
Not
that
a
just
public
shows
meeting.
everything we talked about, and then we decide in council? In a regular session?
Well, you can have any kind of meeting like this, like we could have this meeting somewhere else. You're not necessarily, it's not a regular meeting and you're not gonna, you didn't notice anything to make a decision out of, so you wouldn't make a decision. But we could have this meeting at the coast. I mean, we could have it anywhere as long as we make it accessible. It is, when you all get together, it's gotta be a public meeting. It's gotta be, people can attend if they want to attend.
So a retreat style would still be a public meeting? And
Yes.
you would still have to have
Yeah.
availability for the public? Okay.
And I would say retreat style could be done in this building. I'm not sure that we need to go anywhere to do
I'm
that.
not going to Maui for it.
Yeah.
Well, yeah,
Disneyland.
I
don't
would
know.
say that that's counterproductive to our budget, so let's
That'd be
not
some
do that.
public
Yeah,
uproar
let's-
for
Let's
the-
not do that.
I was using an example.
Yes, I know where you were wanting to go, so.
So basically, a retreat style would be just a regular work session.
Well, you'd
basically.
set aside probably more
Yeah,
like a
more-
day or 2 days.
Instead of a retreat, say a
okay.
long session.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Or you could do it over a couple of.
Long work session.
A long work sessions, something like that. So I guess the next step is just basically what consensus there is from council so that we can go back and start putting some stuff together and work through the process. That's what we'd like to hear at this point.
Well, I know from my standpoint that the way I kind of look at all this is I have 4 cornerstones that I kind of work off of. So budgetary responsibility, which right now we're addressing with the structural deficit. So economic development, transparency, and public safety. Those are the 4 cornerstones that I use, my thought process works off of. And then within those, I have certain things. So for instance, like economic development, Kelly and I were talking about this earlier, earlier, a couple weeks ago, I think it was. For economic development, the Champion Mill site, we were talking about that. So I have those 4 cornerstones and I have a specific topic underneath each one of those. Now, I'd really love to do the 2-year thing because it seems like we get way down in the weeds, but if we're going to do that, then why do we have a staff? I guess is my thought process on that. So if we give staff, provide staff is a better way of saying it, provide staff a Champion Mill site, economic development Champion Mill site. What can we do? They can start their process to advise us on different courses of action they can take or we can take, So I'm more of a strategic thinker for this process. So kind of an overarching thing, like I just said, economic development, mill site, what can the staff do for us kind of thought. The moderator, I will just say, I was thinking of something when you get on, I don't know if anybody else does this, but I know I do. You get on YouTube and you go down a rabbit hole. Okay, that's goal setting without a moderator. Okay, so I would strongly support someone coming in that can kind of keep us on task because I know we're all very passionate about different things and we can go down those rabbit holes and 3 hours later we walk out here and we really got nothing accomplished. And I don't want that. It's a waste of our time. It's a waste of the City of Lebanon staff time and the citizens' time. So I think the money would be well spent for a qualified person to come in here and keep us on task. So we can provide, a viable document that's based off the 2040 vision and also those cornerstones, whatever they might be for each individual counselor. So, okay,
Mike,
that's my input. So.
I agree with that, and I think what would happen, or I think would need to happen, if you have a 5-year plan, you have to go through that 5-year plan, but it's always developing, it's living, and at the end of that 5-year plan, you need to have another 5-year plan. Am I right? It doesn't end, you're not gonna click off all those boxes. Some of
I
it's
think
gonna get
it's,
put.
like you said, it's a living document, so you're continuously updating it. And it's really, you're coming up with, and maybe you come up with another category in your 5-year plan after 3 years that you say, hey, we really want to start tackling X. And so you would start to set goals for that too. It's not, and what the mayor alluded to, yes, you can have goals, but your guys' focus should be the policy goals here. And then our job is to come in and support that policy with goals on action. And how do we make that happen?
I got you, 'cause I feel that I'm not, I wasn't in the 2040 planning thing, and I don't want to insult anybody, but it feels like we did that, and then we didn't have the mechanism to keep up with it. It fell down, and I don't want to go through that same exercise with this, and I do support a moderator, as, my shallow mind thinking, well, what if we could get somebody from the public who's real interested? But I get it. There's people who are professionally do this that will make us much more effective, and I think the money's well spent to have somebody do that for us.
And they'll drag information out of you and get everybody kind of, going in the same direction.
So would that look like doing an RFP then for a moderator or
Yeah.
for this?
I think we would. I think we'd look at and put something out, and I'd need to sit and visit with Kelly for a while on that and figure out exactly how we would put that out. But I think that's the best way to do that is get different proposals, and maybe we bring in, we could score them and bring in the top 3 or 4 if we have that many, and council can score those too and select from that.
Well, I think just keeping, it kind of goes back to my comment, which yes, it was in jest and your money well spent, to be clear. But I wanted, once that goes out, and if we get numbers back that's like 40 and 50,000, I really want to reevaluate at that point, That's
Absolutely.
where I was going with that. So
Yes.
I just have a fear that those are the kind of numbers we're going to get back, and maybe I'm selfish in this, but I don't want to spend that much.
No, and I don't think
I
we
want the
would
best
either.
process on the cheapest, possible route,
And
that we
I
can
think
do.
if we keep the process simple to where we're not trying to get too in-depth and keep the process focused on a 5-year strategic plan without a bunch of, I don't even know what the word frill, I'll call it frill, that then we can keep it to a dual role.
Okay.
And a lot of it's timing and everybody's, the more time you spend with a moderator, the more it costs. So, if we can keep it down to, say, 2-day session, I don't think we're going to be looking at too much, and then provide a document at the end. So-
Well, I would want to say something what Dave was saying about the 2040 vision and how they didn't have the mechanism to to keep updating it because strategic goals, let's be honest, they sometimes are at the mercy of the current environment. And for economic environment or whatever one you want to define. So there has to be adjustments made. It's not that you just throw the goal out. You make adjustments to try to accomplish some of it, maybe, because of budgetary restrictions or whatnot. So I think on the 2040 vision, I think it was a good document, and I think it started out to be a good document. I don't think it was finished, in my opinion. That's my opinion. There wasn't what I use the word measurables to show that it's succeeding. And then it kind of got this, I don't want to say tabled, but just kind of got set aside. No one really looked at it. So this will help maybe finish that process of the 2040 vision. And that's the other thing I wanted to talk about is those measurables. When you set goals, you have to be able to measure the success of it. And if we don't do that, there's no point in it. There really isn't. You can have a goal of, Lebanon's gonna, I don't know, put a man on the moon, put someone on the moon. And, but if we never have anybody that's really looking at it with a
Build a rocket
telescope
ship, you're not going to get.
to see if we actually were on the moon, then there's no point in making that goal. So just remember that as we go through this process, that, sometimes we can set goals that are so high that there's no way of, a better example would be, everybody's going to get along in Lebanon. How do you measure that? You don't.
Clear, achievable, and measurable.
Yeah, thank you. And just remember that when we're going through this process. I think this is very important for the city. It's also very important for the staff. I was telling Ron earlier this week that the first year I got into office was learning how this local government thing works. Okay. Still don't fully understand it. I don't think anybody does. But, that was the first year. This year is getting that strategic plan. Where do we want the city to go in the future? It's a very important process, but I also throw the caveat in there that it's going to be a frustrating process. I'll tell you that right now. That we will be in this process and some of us will probably throw our hands up and go, why are we doing this? Just remember, there is a reason for it. It gives direction for the city, the staff, citizens, us, and it's not an easy process. It can be difficult. So, anybody else have anything? Okay, go ahead.
I've been, is that on? I've been a part of a couple of these. The thing I think that's most important to remember is that the biggest policy document that this council does is the budget, right? Everything in that policy is in the budget is basically your direction of policy. So the more you can tie the discussion and the decisions to the realistic and budget that you're operating under, the better, because that then gives staff the ability to do it within the budget that you're saying. But they can also come back to you and say, you want us to do this, but you don't give us enough money, or you haven't made this a priority in the budget. How can you say it's a priority in this working document? So those two really have to work together, because really, one time a year that this council really sets the policy is when they pass that budget.
Right. Oh, go ahead. Nope. Oh, I was going to say right now, I just wanted to go around and just kind of get an idea of what everybody's thinking of goals. Like for instance, I already voiced that I kind of have those 4 cornerstones that I work off of, and economic development. The mill property down there is one of my. I'd love to see that developed, because I think it's just a big. People drive by it every day and go, why hasn't something been done with that? It would give the city a lot of hope, economic hope. But anyhow, and then I have other ones within those other cornerstones. So, but I'd like to go around and just hear your thoughts, on possible goals, strategic, or if you want to do 2 years. So, anybody want to start?
I think that having either doing a plan for 5 to 7 years is the ideal way to go, because you can come back and review it every year or so to see how you're going at it. And I'd say one of my biggest goals is trying to get the police department fully funded and fully staffed to where we can use the building.
There's no magic to mine. I ran on the same things. I think now I want our police fully funded. That jail that people are paying for needs to be open. We need to have a balanced budget, and we have to have the infrastructure that supports what we're doing, where we're going, and we're growing. So that's always been my 4 priorities.
So we're going this way.
If you choose.
Yeah, I would put public safety at the top. And then beyond that, I think economic development at the Cheetah Lake site is pretty high on my wish list, where that fits into the budget, and how much, anyway. And then beyond that, yeah, in discussions here every month, the infrastructure, being able to find ways to keep up with the infrastructure and funding that, all that within a balanced budget.
Yeah, I think for me, certainly public safety is the top one. I'm open to discussing the jail and seeing what that looks like. I have some concerns just in terms of like insurance and things that I've read at other jails, but I do want to talk about that. Increasing staffing, possibly increasing the number of officers we have. I think it's been static for years. I would like to see that as a policy, like that we do something with that in terms of budget later on. And then beyond that, infrastructure as well. I do think, we need to get, like the West Side Intercept, we need to get all of those, everything ready for the kind of growth that we're having in this town. So we can fully support single-family homes on some of our undeveloped areas. So that's where I am.
For me, always public safety, especially with the pending changes coming down to Measure 110 that we're seeing up at the state, where they're going to start recriminalizing possession. We're going to have space, otherwise we're just laughing into the wind. The other thing for me is infrastructure. We have, I don't know how many hundreds of miles of ancient, almost Roman time sewer lines and water lines that are slowly, more quickly actually, starting to deteriorate. And roads, I would love to have roads that didn't require an ice storm to not have potholes, because it causes even more. It's those little quality of life things. And if we don't do something with the infrastructure, we're in bigger trouble because it's not getting cheaper to fix. That's one of those long-term things, short, medium, and long-term goals.
I'm not sure how the urban renewal fits in. I've been confused about that ever since I came aboard. But I think we need a parking structure or increased parking downtown. Thank you. We need a parking structure or something downtown. We talked about the downtown association and we're encouraging them to continue to do whatever they're going to do. But that's an inhibiting thing right now for downtown, is a lack of parking. When I lived in Eugene, Urban Renewal came in and built this beautiful 4-story parking structure right downtown with businesses on the bottom floor. And I think that will help in encouraging development, economic development downtown. But how we're going to finance that?
Yeah.
That, like I said, they use urban renewal funds to do that project downtown, and how we can do that here, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I think that let's remember when you were just talking, Wayne, it made me have this thought that my 4 cornerstones that I work off of, the biggest one is economic development, because without new growth with businesses and housing, it's really hard to pay for stuff. Bottom line, we don't print money, city government, so we have to think about that. It almost runs in a how do I want to say it? Without this doesn't happen kind of attitude. So remember that when you're going through the process over the next couple months while we do this process on setting goals. If that's one of the for instance on Wayne's, if that's one of his concerns and he feels that would be under that economic development, coming up with a parking plan, or maybe just reinforcing ordinances and actually starting a parking program again. That's kind of what my thought process would be on that. But, okay, so what's everybody's, I don't know if everybody said it, moderator? I thought I heard
Okay.
Yes,
needed.
please.
Okay,
Definitely.
okay.
Okay. I mean, that gives us a good place to start. We'll start penciling some stuff out. This is gonna not happen overnight. So we'll.
2 days then?
Yes. Maybe a day and a half for you, a day and a half. We can get it in a day and a half. It'll take some time to put an RFP together and probably share that with you before we put it out, just so you know what we're going to look for.
So we look at that in March or in February?
I'm gonna guess March
Okay.
sometime.
I was just thinking in terms of like when we would start this process then, so we're looking at if we picked if we pick somebody, then we're looking at like July, August then?
Yeah, possibly. I
Okay.
mean, somewhere in that neighborhood. I'm not sure that, I mean, yes, we want to keep it moving forward, but I don't know that unless we're trying to shoot for something in this fiscal year upcoming, I don't know that there's a giant rush. Not to say that we're going to back burner it, but we'll get an RFP, let you guys review that RFP before we put it out, and then put it out. Usually run an RFP for 4 to 6 weeks, and then you bring it back. So math on that.
We're gonna have our time ate up by doing the budget in there.
Mhm,
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm not advocating to do it to like as quickly as possible either. I was just trying to,
It's good to know a timeline, no?
yeah,
Yeah,
map it
and
out in my head where
that's
this is
kinda-
gonna be.
I hadn't really thought too much through a timeline at this point, but yeah, it won't take us long to put an RFP together, but then we'll have to meet back with you guys, let you look at it and then get it out 4 to 6 weeks. You get them back, you score them, and you bring it back here. So it's a process. I mean, when we've done RFPs in the past for different things in Public Works, it takes, I don't know, 3 or 4 months by the time you get everything back and scored and you notify everybody and you can get a contract in place. So we'll work through those details and get them back to you. But in conjunction with that, we're going to probably be coming in March, hopefully March, with some items, with structural deficit. We're meeting as a staff in February to throw everything against the wall with pros, cons, consequences, and costs. So, and that way we can have that discussion with you all and where we need to go and what we think we can do and what it's going to take to get there. That's our plan at this point, yeah. Reluctant to commit to too much at this point.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
It's gonna snow tomorrow, so forget it.
Okay, well, that sounds good. Well,
Is it?
It's supposed to be 60 degrees this weekend.
yeah, that's what I thought too.
It's gonna be flooding. It's not gonna snow.
Okay.
Okay.
That gives me what I need, so unless there's any other questions. Appreciate the time.
Thanks for your efforts.
Yeah, Kelly deserves a lot of thanks on this too.
Thanks as always, Kelly.
It's
Yeah, I was going to say,
effort on this.
Awesome.
I was
so.
going to ask if Kelly had anything she wanted to add.
Not this time.
She's saving it for later.
All righty, I appreciate it. I want to also say that I appreciate everybody being able to show up. Even if you weren't able to, I would hope you'd be on Zoom. But like I spoke last time, for this process and just general business, I think we're going to have a few more work sessions here and there. I'm not going to try to have one every week or anything, so don't worry about that. But I do appreciate everybody's time, and I know everybody has lives and
I'll,
other jobs and whatnot, so.
Just like to add, in deference to the Honorable Michelle, that I'm open to evenings too. I like the Saturdays thing. I know that's difficult during the day like this. It works out good for me because I'm close, but I understand people's schedules and
Yeah.
I'm good with evenings if it needs to be.
So you're complete. If there's nothing else,
I'm good.
then this